Hi and welcome to another video by Jim the Car Guy. Today we're working on a 2003, it's a Ford Explorer. The customer complaint is that there's a loud rumbling noise in the car as they're driving. After going further and checking into it, I see that the hub bearings are actually no good. The right front hub bearing is no good. You could grab the wheel and you could rock it back and forth, that's how bad it is. The left side hub bearing has a little bit of play in it, but nothing really significant. But the customer chose to go ahead and replace the bearings at this point also. I am doing the rear bearings because they knew that the rear bearings were making noise for months now and they're going to be changed. So we're doing all four hub bearings at the same time. I did do the left side. The left front already is done. I'm going to be doing the right side now. I'm going to take you along with me. I'm going to show you how to do it step by step. I will say this was a real pain in the rear end because of rust underneath here. Getting the axle and the bearing out, not even the bearing out, just taking the center lock nut on the axle shaft was a real pain in the rear end to get out. Also the bolts were rusted solid, difficult time getting them out too. So I'm going to take you over the other side. I'm going to show you how that goes, and hopefully we're not going to have the same problem on the right side that we had on the left side. I do want to point out, and I guess all you guys do know it already, don't go with an inferior part. Spend the extra money, get something that's decent, go with a name brand, whether it's Moog or BCM or whatever, go with a name brand, don't go with the cheap bearings. You're going to be kicking yourself that you did. Spend the extra money, get a better bearing, do the job one time and you'll never have to worry about it again. Alright, let's get up there. I'm going to show you exactly what I did on the left side and what we're going to do on the right side. Okay, this is what I wanted to point out to you. That's how rusty everything is in this. You really can't even, I mean, I don't even know how that's going to come out of there. We'll see when I bring an air gun in there. We're going to shoot it out and see, but we'll see how that goes. All right, so what I'm going to do is, first thing we're going to do is we're going to take out that nut on the axle right there. We're going to shoot that out. I'm going to use an air gun just because I have it. If you have to do it by hand, you can do it. The wheels will need to be locked in position so you can get that off. Whether you put a screwdriver in here to lock it up while you turn it, it's whatever works for you. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to come over here and we're going to take off the mounting bracket right here. We're going to take the caliper off the car. We're going to support it over here. We're going to hang it down over here on a hanger. We are going to take off this mounting bracket also. And there is a couple of bolts in the back over here that we'll need to take out. This one as well as one more on the bottom, but I will show you that too. You're going to also need to disconnect the ABS sensor. You can see where it runs up in the top, right up inside here. We're going to need to unplug that sensor right there. No big deal. That's fairly easy. The part that was a real pain in the rear end, was getting out these 15mm bolts right here. Two of them came out. The other one was a real pain in the rear end to get out. And as you know, you don't want to bring heat in there if you don't have to. But after playing around with it, I was able to finally get it out. So hopefully this side's not going to kick my rear end like the other side did. This job here should take you all of about an hour to get done, but the other side was a little bit rough. So we'll see how that goes. I just want to point out what tools you're going to need. Obviously, you're going to need an air gun. You're going to need a couple of hammers, a pry bar. This is to actually hang the caliper so it's not dangling by its cable. Our friendly penetrating fluid here, or better known as a Panther P. We're going to take that off. You're going to need I always use, to take off the mounting bracket itself, I use a 1/2-inch drive because they're pretty tight. We're going to need a ratchet, whether you use a flex head or you use a regular head, whatever. You can use an impact chisel to try to drive the drive shaft out of the old bearing. I'm going to show you how to do it without using this impact gun. I'm going to show you how to use it, how to get it out, just using a hammer, and you won't damage the threads on the axle at all, because I use another hammer actually to center it over the top. So, all right, let me grab the air gun and let's get started and see how it goes. Keep our fingers crossed. All right, let's give it a try. Let's see how it works out. can't believe it, but it actually came right out. Now, we're not going to take this nut totally out. We're going to leave this nut partially in there. And the reason we're going to do that is because we're going to come in here. Now, obviously, if you have an impact gun, you can use an impact gun to shoot that and push it back. But if you're doing this in the street, chances are you don't have an impact gun. So what you can do is take a hammer, you put the hammer over the top of the axle itself, leave the nut on there, and then you just bang this here, you bang it and you try to knock the axle through the bearing into the back. As you can see, it's moving. Okay. So now you can see that the axle is moving, and we can take the nut off. Take that out. Don't lose it, because you're going to need to put this back on. Then you come up over in here and you just pry the brake shoes, just the brake pads, just a little bit, just so you have a little bit of play between the caliper and the brake pads, because that way you can pull it right up and out of here. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to take a ratchet. I believe it's a 13 millimeter. We're going to remove these two 13 millimeter bolts on here, and we're going to take the caliper and relocate that off to the side for now. Once you break them loose, you can usually take them out by hand. Don't lose them, because you're going to need to put these back in later. Same thing on the bottom. Now we'll take the caliper. Remember the hanger I told you about? You're going to take this and you're going to hang it over here. But before we do that, we're going to disconnect the ABS sensor right here. You just pull the sensor out of the clips that hold it in place. The other clip that holds it here, you just pry that out of the way. So you can open it up, and we'll take that down like this. There is one more underneath here that we're going to need to remove also. And you just pry it out with a screwdriver. Now, this ABS sensor, this one, runs all the way up to the top, up on here. I'm going to take it off on top, but for now I'm just going to remove it here temporarily, because we're not going to be using that anyway. Put that off to the side, and then we're going to take our hanger and just put the hanger through the caliper and just relocate that anywhere that's out of the way so it doesn't interfere. Alright, next thing we're going to do, sorry about that noise, next thing we're going to do is we're going to come in the back over here, and we're going to remove this bolt here and this bolt here. I believe they're 18 millimeters. We're going to take those out so we can remove this mounting bracket from the rotor, so we can take the rotor off the car. So let me take those two bolts out, and we'll remove the. Okay, we get in here with the pry bar, or a breaker bar, I should say, and we're going to break the bolts loose. They're pretty tight, so that's why I use a little bit extra leverage to get it out. Now, again, if you have an air gun, you can get in here with an air gun. Be my guest. Alright, then we can take these bolts. Don't lose these, because you're going to need to put these back on when you put the mounting bracket on. Now we'll just take the bracket and put that off to the side for now. And then we'll pull the rotor right off the car. Now this is where I ran into a pain in the rear end before. These bolts here, they look a little bit rusty, but not as bad as the other side. We're going to take those bolts out. They come around in the back over here, and you can see the bolts back there. So let's take those 3 bolts out, and we'll see how it goes. is a little bit of a tight fit inside here. So I usually get in there with a ratchet, the swivel head. I do like this swivel head, in case you guys haven't noticed in all my videos. That's pretty much what I use 99% of the time. We're going to use some of our blaster to hopefully assist us during the removal process. They're not tight, but they're coming out. Amazing, huh? Clean out. Next one. All right, we're going to take these out and then we'll come right back. Okay. All right, now that we got all the bolts loose, this is probably the most important part of the entire job, and I want you to pay very close attention to this, right? What you're going to do is you're going to come in the back and you're going to take these bolts that you previously took out. Most important, you got to get all three of them, right? You take all three of them. This is the most important step. Remember this. You take these and you do that. You don't use them again. You use the new bolts that come with it, because those things are so rusty. Plus, they have Loctite all over them, so you have to be real careful. We're going to put these back in. They come with the new hub bearing. When you buy a good quality bearing, it comes with new bolts too. So, all right, let's get ready, and we're going to knock this bearing off of here. Two different ways you can do it. One, you can get in here with a slide hammer. You put it on here, and you can slide hammer knock it off. Or you can do what I do: grab a big hammer and beat the heck out of this thing, and it pops right off. It doesn't matter because it's trash anyway. So let me grab my my hammer. Let's try to persuade it. Usually a couple taps and you can get it right off. Usually, not all the time. That sucker isn't moving. All right, time for a bigger hammer. All right, let me give it a couple of shots, knock it out of there. I'm going to relocate this caliper out of the way temporarily while I go underneath there and try to persuade it to come off. So we're just going to move this like that for now. And let's see what happens here. The sound we're waiting to hear is starting to move. Okay. I'm out of breath. All right, once you get it to move, then you just get in here with your pry bar. And we're just going to, easier said than done. Exactly why, but there's actually silicone on this barrel. time for a real He-Man Mechanics pry bar. We're just going to tap this out very easily, because we already did this before, remember? Now I want to point out, most of the time whenever you do something like that, you will screw the nut back on over the top of it. I didn't have to, because this is so rusted away underneath here that the tapping wasn't going to do anything, so it was just extremely rusty. But normally you'll just screw your nut back on, and then you'll hit it through the center. Okay, so that is our bearing. Let's grab the new one. Listen, don't know if you can hear it, but that is the noise that you're getting. All right, oh look at that, plus it's blue. So it's running pretty hot. All right, let me grab the new one and we're going to put it back together. Okay, remember I mentioned to you that somebody put silicone on here. I'm not sure exactly why, but we're going to remove it just because it's going to interfere with the new bearing. So you can use your scraper, you can use a razor blade, whatever works for you. I'm using a razor blade because it cuts it off pretty easily. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to get our new bearing. I might add, anything that I put back in, and you should too, use a little bit of anti-seize. It'll keep it from binding up and goes in nice and smooth. A little bit of never-seize on here, and a lot of never-seize on the axle shaft itself, where it's going to be going into the new bearing. Just so it slides nice and easy. A little never-seize here. And then we're going to put our bearing back in. Now, I just want to point this out. When you put your bearing back in, make sure you put it so that you put your ABS sensor back in the groove right here where it's supposed to be, which is where this one goes right here. Alright, so before I do anything, we're going to catch all three of the bolts in the back. Before we do anything, we're going to tighten them. We're going to snug and catch each one of them, all three of them first, before we tighten anything up. Now, once we have all of them caught, we're going to relocate that caliper out of our way again, just so we can work over here. We're just going to hang out of the way a little bit, and now we'll tighten the bolts in as far as we can by hand, and then we'll tighten them up with a ratchet. Now, there probably is torque specs on this. I'm not even going to look it up. I just tighten them up. I've done so many of them. So we're just going to tighten them up. I just want to point this out. You're going to tighten them all three equally. You don't go tighten one all the way and then come back and it's cocked and you can't get the other one back in. So you tighten them up a little bit on each one. And then once you've got them all pretty tight, you can come back and you can tighten them all up all the way. We're just going to tighten them down. Nice and tight. Same thing here. The last one. Okay. So now all three of our bolts are tight. We're just going to put the ABS sensor back in the groove where it belongs here. We're going to screw that nut back on by hand as far as you can. And now you know you're caught. And now you can shoot it down very tight. Okay. Now this for now, we're just going to leave this on the side. We're going to come back to this later. We're just going to put that off to the side and we're going to put our brakes back together. You put your rotor back on. What I normally do, to make it a little easier, screw a nut on there. It holds the rotor in place while you try to do the rest of the installation. All right, the rotor's nice and tight. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to put a little bit of never seize on the bolts. And then we'll take our mounting bracket and put it back in where it came from. And before you tighten the bolts up, you're going to make sure both of them are caught. With that never seize, it screws in really easy, so alright, we're going to tighten up the mounting bracket so it's nice and tight. Same thing on the bottom. Now there is torque specs for these mounting brackets here. I don't look it up, I just go by feel because I've done it for almost 40 years I've been doing this, so I know how tight to tighten it. If you need the specs, send me an email, I'll look it up for you, let you know what it is. Next thing we're going to do, take our caliper that we relocated off to the side, place that back over the brake pads like this. Push your slide pins back in, and then you catch both of the bolts by hand. Don't tighten anything until you have them both caught. Once you've got both of them caught, then you can tighten them up. I just want to point out one thing. I'm going to tighten it, then I'm going to show you one more thing. Nice and tight. I just want to point out one more thing to you. I'll take my gloves off. Nothing like never seize all over the camera. That's pretty hard to clean off. Alright. What I want to point out is down here, you see how this piece here is turned sideways and it fits right into that little spot right there? You want to make sure that it's not turned sideways and this piece is touching into there, because you'll never catch the bolts in correctly and you'll probably wind up cross-threading them. Alright, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to reattach our ABS cable where it belongs here. As you recall, we had that piece right in there. We'll just put it in, snap it in place. This goes here, and these three connect up in here. That's something you don't see very often, me working without gloves on. Alright, next thing we're going to do is we're going to reconnect this other part. Actually, let me just go back a second here. This I'm going to take off because I'm going to reuse the old one that's up there. I'm just going to pop this off and I'll come right back. Sorry about that, but you just pop this clip open and we throw it away. I'm not going to use it because it's in a bad spot there. I can't get up underneath there easy enough. See where it's located there? Okay, then we're just going to push this for now up here, just temporarily, until I go up top now and I just reconnect it up top. Now, we're going to put this back in here where it came out of and snap it in place. Tough to do with one hand, but you can hear that click. That's the click you're listening for. This we're just going to push up top for now. We're just going to put it right there. Now I'm going to lower the car down and I'm going to show you how to reattach that. Okay, now that we got the car back down, not quite on the floor, but close enough, I'm going to show you where the ABS sensor is located. This is the end of it that I cut off. And the way you remove it is you just push in that little pin right there, and you pull it, and it comes right out. Then we have to take this piece here. It's real important that you do this too. Throw it in the garbage. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our lead for the other sensor. We're going to bring it back in the same way that it was, so it's in the same place. And we're just going to take it, push it back together. It's hard to do with one hand, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm still going to do it. There we go. And you wait for that click, and then you know that it's locked. That's it. And we're locked in. All right? So the sensor is going to go there. It's supposed to be mounted to that piece right up here. We're going to do that also. And that's it. We're going to wrap it up. Then we're all set down here. All right, I just want to go over this with you again. Make sure you air gun this nut on nice and tight. Your mounting bracket is tight. Your caliper is tight. And especially your ABS sensor, make sure it's back in the place where it's supposed to be. Don't leave it dangling, because if it gets caught, it's going to get ripped off and you're going to be changing another bearing. Well, now I can tell you, that bearing was a pain in the ass. I mean, of all things, to be rusted that solid now. I did break away for a little while I beat the daylights out of it, and I had a couple of four-letter words that I had to remove when I edited this, so it was really tight, and it was a pain in the rear end getting it off. So rust always works against you, but hang in there. It's just part of the job, and as anybody in the business knows, it's just another day in the shop. Thanks again. All right, that's it. Any questions or comments, or you need any advice, drop me a line. I'll be more than happy to talk to you about anything. As always, thanks for watching. See you on the next one.